All right. So, what's up there, YouTube and Twitch fans? Just wanted to bring you another one of these wonderful build videos among the thousands that are out there. Yeah, we know about all that stuff, especially DPS builds. You know, these DPS builds are a dime a dozen. You can build them one way, you can build them another. This particular build I'll be showing you today, though, I would recommend doing very much in the same manner that I am. We have tested it, tried and true. I've been running this build for about 4 months now, working on it and tweaking it and making it and fine-tuning it and doing all the special things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this thing, okay? Um, First off, we want to go ahead and give some props to the FKM Death Division. That's my clan. Been running with these boys for quite some time now. We discuss many things. We run Iron Horse raids on the regular. You can check out Slackadelic, who is also on YouTube. He streams the raid runs, and I've been trying to stream them as well. Most of the time, you'll see us doing Iron Horse. Every once in a blue moon, you can catch us doing the Dark Hours raid, but we're still kind of getting used to that one and learning all of the mechanics within the raid for the Razorback. Looking forward to getting that completed, though, so I can finish out my exotic collection and get the wonderful Eagle Bearer. Have all the other exotics in the game except for that one. Anyways, let's go ahead and dig into this sucker. So I don't need to move from here. I can just show you what's up. So what we got going on here is we're running this build in Demolitionist spec. So most of the time I'll be running this build in Demolitionist spec because the Demolitionist, he can ignore explosions once every 60 seconds, and he also has a wonderful grenade launcher, which I don't use very often. Heaven forbid I kill myself with it. I'm sure all you all have been experienced to that. So the other reason why we use it is because of the group benefit of 5% damage targets out of cover. Now, if you need to see that stuff, you can look at your own tree and figure that out. I also run Technician when I need to do a lot of damage to skill proxies like dogs, tanks, drones, things like that. So anyways, getting down into the weapons here, the primary weapon that I use here is going to be the SOCOM MK16. You'll see that my MK16 is set to assault rifle damage, just like it always is, and health damage, just like it always is. But the one attribute that we can change on this weapon, I've modified and made it damage to targets out of cover. It's a multiplier. You could go damage to armor there if you'd like. And then the talent on the weapon is strained. I haven't really found another talent that provides me with enough DPS sustained that it produces the big numbers that I like to see at the end of the runs when I want to be number one on that damage chart. So anyways, getting further into it, I run the Scorpio as well with this build, and this is a great lifesaver and an AoE damage producer. This weapon right here, it's a go-to for most builds. You'll find that a lot of players are using this weapon, and this applies status effects and does all kinds of great things to targets when you're trying to add additional buffs to the group, like proccing a Vindictive or other items of the sort. So the Scorpio is a great close-range weapon, or an AoE weapon when you're trying to control a door and such, or just stop a Chunga in his tracks. So the exotic mask that I run with this is definitely going to be the Coyote mask. The reason why we run the Coyote mask is because when we look at the stats on this build, you'll see that I'm not quite crit chance capped. And I like to keep it that way because I've run the build with 60% crit chance, or the hard cap of crit chance, and I found that my DPS was actually less. Damage in the runs, like sustained damage when I do my runs, it was actually less. So anyways, this mask comes with weapon damage, crit chance, and critical hit damage. You'll see that I've got a crit damage mod on there as well. Pack Instincts is great, and that's what helps me get to the 60% crit chance in most instances, because I am fighting targets from 15 to 25 meters quite frequently. Now, the 25 plus meter, it's not as often, but when I do have to fight a target at 25 plus, it's definitely nice to mark it up with a lot of orange instead of whites. And you can definitely see that on your own when you try the build out. So the next piece that I run here is going to be a Grupo Sombra chess piece. The reason why I've chosen this chess piece over the Seska chess piece or the Fenris, Fenris, of course, would give me more assault rifle damage. And I've definitely thought about running that piece as well, but I would lose that 15% critical hit damage. And there's a critical soft cap of crit hit damage that I like to reach, which is 180. 80% critical hit damage seems to be a very nice soft cap for your critical hit damage when you're running this build. It seems to give you a good proc on your orange numbers. You can see numbers spike up into the millions once you get your Negotiator's Dilemma buff, and other buffs from other players come into play as well. Yeah. So we run Obliterate on this so that we can get additional weapon damage for critical hits. This stacks up to 25 times, so you definitely see that additional 25% weapon damage quite frequently, believe it or not. And that stacks for 5 seconds, and you can refresh that stack, which has no cooldown. So do a quick reload and start landing crits again, and of course you're going to continue to build that buff. So I definitely like this and have found it useful with this build. I think that I would run this piece until my dying breath in this build, because this build is just, it's just so awesome, and it melts. You guys will definitely find that it puts out the damage like no other. I haven't found a build for myself that can put out damage, sustained damage, in the manner that this one does. So anyways, getting into the Negotiator Dilemma pieces. So I run the holster, and you'll see that I have the holster set up with crit damage. All right, so we also have the knees, and the knees are set up with crit damage. We got the gloves, and they're set up with crit damage. Everything's crit damage, crit damage, crit damage, okay? And then finally, the most important piece of the Negotiator Dilemma here is going to be the backpack. And the reason why we have to run this backpack is because we want to see the hostile negotiations buff jump from 60%. If you look here, critical measures, it jumps from 60% to 100%. So we do 100% of the critical hit damage that we're doing to another marked target to all marked targets. Now, a lot of people would say, why don't you run the chess piece? I don't run the chess piece because it's hard to mark 5 targets and maintain that 5 target mark. It's easier to mark 3 targets and maintain that 3 target mark. And the other thing that I've found with this build and the way that it's running is that it melts single targets even. So you'll see that you'll be putting out heavy amounts of damage just to a single target alone. But you'll also find that if you mark a couple of yellow bar mobs and maybe go to a red bar or a purple bar or yellow bar tank and start damaging that tank, and once you get your crit, those 2 yellow bar mobs, they'll die pretty fast. And you can go back and mark a couple more and come back to that tank and finish it off. Sometimes you finish that tank off as fast as you finish them other mobs off, because you just see that steady stream of orange crit damage numbers. So now I'm sure everybody's wondering, they saw all this stuff and they see all this crit damage and all this crit chance. You'll notice that on my backpack, I've got it set up for crit damage as the attribute, and the mod is set to crit chance. There's a reason why this one mod is set to crit chance, and that's going to be because the stats here, I want to hit a soft cap of 46% critical hit chance. So 46% critical hit chance, really important. You got to hit that soft cap in order to be able to go over the 60% hard cap when you proc your Coyote Mask or Vindictive, which is when you kill a target that's been status affected with a Vindictive talented weapon. I do have a Vindictive Talented Pistol. Don't use it very often. My primary weapon in this build is definitely going to be the SOCOM MK16. You could go with a tactical MK16 if you choose to do so. Measured is also another good talent to use with this build. But you'll notice here that I've got 181% critical hit damage. 181%. So I'm 1% over that soft cap that I like to be at. And the reason why I want to be that high is because those orange numbers, you want those orange critical hits to throw out an extra 180%. Use that multiplier to kick that damage up there. So anyways, that's the build breakdown. Now, I didn't show you the items that I have set up on the weapon itself. I do run the 3.4 times scope, which is 5% critical hit chance. I run the long underbarrel rail short grip because it's 5% critical hit damage. I run the large suppressor, which gives me 10% accuracy, makes the weapon a lot more accurate. That little BB doesn't bounce around quite as much. I really like doing it that way. And I also run 20 extra rounds because it allows me to run my magazine at this RPM of 625 for quite some time. You'll find that in order to proc strain, you need to be firing your weapon for a minimum of 2.5 seconds, right? 2.5 seconds. And then you want to fire a little longer than that because once you build up those 5 stacks, you want to be able to put out that 50% critical hit damage for a sustained period. So another reason why I run the 625 RPM weapon rather than something higher. Like, let's say you could go with something like a Savage Wolverine. You could go with these are like 790s, right? You could go with an SMG, which I tried one of these SMGs, like Cold Relations here. That's perfectly strained, 700 RPMs. But the SMG, that BB just bounced around too much, and it doesn't have the range. You can see that the damage drop off. It's quite fast. It doesn't really hold that range like the SOCOM does. So we want to go ahead and stick with the SOCOM in this build. I think it's definitely the choice weapon here. Some other people like to run the Carbine 7. I haven't really found that weapon works good for me. It's kind of a personal choice when it comes between the two. The SOCOM definitely seems to put out more base damage than that weapon, though. And I think that the Carbine has a higher RPM to it as well. And so you won't be firing the full proc of strained for as long. So that's another thing you can consider there. So with that said, I think I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I could show you a real quick rundown down here in the range here. Let's go ahead and go to the range. If you stayed with me this long, you can see the build tested out here in the range and just see what my personal buffs are. We're going to go ahead and kick the range up to heroic. And something you're noticing is my world is set to challenging. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll be helping players level up. So world at challenging, 3 directives. You run resource convoys, territory controls, elite patrols, elite resource convoys. Don't worry so much about the materials that you gather from the control points, because the time it takes to kill a control point and get that XP is a killer on your resource convoy repeats and your elite territory control stuff like that. So anyways, let's go ahead and set this. We set this to heroic. Yep, got it on heroic. All right, we're gonna fill the, yep, it's full, and we're gonna go right here. We're gonna change this guy to an elite named. Okay, and named, you're not gonna see that I put out that much DPS, but I'm gonna put out some. So all right, so we're just gonna fire at the body here, shooting at the body, kind of showing you some base numbers here. So I got 1 kill, and what we want to do here is we want to build up kills, right? So you're going to see at the end of combat, you're going to build multiple kills, and you can see that the Negotiator's Dilemma is stacking. There's a green bar underneath it there, starting to stack, right? So I'm going to stack that real quick. Just kill these targets until it's full, and then we'll show you that full stacked buff. Because it's not not hard to do. It's not really hard to do. The other thing I like about the RPMs of this weapon is that it allows you to move target to target without releasing the trigger and losing that strained buff, and still landing a few good heavy hitting shots on that next target. So we're fully procced on our Negotiator's Dilemma, okay? You can see that we're fully procced. We're still in combat because we stayed close enough. So we're going to go ahead and kick the range to 10 meters. Actually, we'll move it out to 15. So it's a 15, all right? So we got that fully procced. Alright. And we're going to go ahead and start shooting the target. You can see this rifle, it stays on target pretty good, right? So about 4 million there, I think, is what you saw the DPS at. But anyways, yeah, that's what it runs at. So another thing that you're going to cause when you're running this build is you're going to pull a lot of threat. If you stayed with me long enough, you'll kind of figure out that you're going to pull a lot of threat. And so these talents that you run down here, red builds, you can run whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. But I highly recommend running the decoy because it can distract opponents from you. And the turret is another great distraction. I tend to switch my talents quite often throughout runs. EMP sticky, all kinds of different stuff. Shock traps. I use multiple different talents. I basically, not talents, but skills just to kind of fit my need when I'm in a run. So anyways, yeah. Hope you guys liked it. And come back and see me again next time. And be sure to like and subscribe if you like the build video. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
I've got the
So long.
biggest inventory in DC.